right. Welcome to the Poetry Flash Reading Series. I'm Joyce Jenkins, editor and director of Poetry Flash. Tonight we are delighted to present Dan Bellm and Ann Fisher-Wirth. Thanks to Harold, who you just heard from, Harold Adler, and the Art House Gallery Cultural Center for this amazing space, and to Rosalinda Monroy and Stephen Bunza for their help and support. Poetry Flash readings are held both in person at various Berkeley venues and online. We also post videos of as many of the events as we possibly can on our Poetry Flash YouTube channel. To join our mailing list to receive emails of future events, please sign our analog clipboard. Put your email here, and we will enter it in the system, and you will get notices of these events. And you can also sign up on poetryflash.org, and you should visit poetryflash.org to check out book reviews, interviews, and calls for submissions, and to find upcoming news about Poetry Flash readings and other literary events all over California. An insightful essay on Alicia Ostraker's poetry by Richard Silberg is our cover story this month. There will be info posted this weekend about our Al Young tribute at the Hillside Club that's going to take place June 3rd. We have books available here for tonight's reading and ready for you to have them signed. We also have the books featured tonight available online at bookshop.org/shop/poetryflash. And we have refreshments. So anyway, here is Richard Silberg, our associate editor, to introduce the poets.
Hiya, boys and girls. Our two readers tonight are Dan Bellm and Ann Fisher-Wirth, and Dan is going to read first. He's read in this series many times, and I always look forward to him for an easy conversational style, his wit, and his agility of mind. Watch him jumping around there, leaping to and fro. He's got 4 previous books, one of which is on the table, Deep Well, which is a very touching, beautiful book to his mother. His earlier books are to his father, who is actually in counting in a Trump poem, a funny, and it's not funny, but it's gripping. It ends with his orange hair. Trump is not funny, and he's not gripping. Dan is also a translator. He's got a new translation, Central American Book of the Dead by Balam Rodrigo, which you're going to talk about that. I also found out just in the last week or so that he's working as an interpreter for refugees, asylum seekers at Centro Legal de la Raza, which is beautiful work. It's important work. So the new book is Counting, and there's some. The final poem, Counting, is a ropal.
Yes.
A ropal. a ropal, which counts up in syllabic lines from 1 to 36. So here we go with agile Dan Bellm.
Thank you so much, Richard and Joyce and everybody for being here. Oh, what a nice full room. Is this mic placement good? All right.
Higher.
Higher.
Higher and closer.
Okay. How about this? Oh, yeah.
The higher and closer.
Okay, how's that?
Good.
Great. So, yes, I've been very fortunate this spring to have 2 books coming out at the same time. This one actually will be here any day now, and I welcome people who want to order it from me, and I'll get it to you right away. I thought I was going to have books by today, but I'll read from both of them. I'll read from Counting first, and then a few of the translations. And it's my mother's yard site today, the anniversary of her death. So it's been 13 years. And yeah, Deep Well is a whole book I wrote in her honor. Maybe I'll start with Mom, just a short one. I wrote this sometime in the weeks soon after she died, and then it took me a long time to write the rest of this book. It's called She Waits. Looked for her in the unseen, in the play of air against the edge of what appeared to be. A child's laugh in a neighbor yard could recall her, only to call her back into what had passed. Saw her in dreams, but she waited at one side in the not to be dreamed of yet, neither asking for hope nor giving it, not saying yes or no. Tried to step out of the way as she taught, to see if that would make it simpler to be found. Felt she wanted to be held, even hold on to the child she'd made, but she wouldn't say. Was it more blessed not to be anyone? Was that the problem now? Was she deciding? Tried praying her across then, but could not, for she kept remaining in the light she had brought to the world. So a few from the new one. This one's for my husband, who some of you know. In our early days, we were living in New York, and we invented a ritual. This is called kissing on bridges. There are 36 bridges in Central Park, no 2 of them alike. Or rather, there are 14 bridges and 22 arches, some ornamental, some rustic. We set ourselves the goal in our early days of kissing each other on every one of them, and why wouldn't we? Then somehow we lost count or lost our way, and then we left or fled that city, but there were quite a few, fashioned in one case of sandstone and brownstone with ornate carvings in its spandrels. There was a little explanatory pamphlet. Or with Gothic-style quatrefoils on its balustrades, or featuring a red brick vault above a bridle path, or with cast-iron railings and blue-gray granite along the abutments, and one with a pair of decorative grottos and an arch face surrounded by pentagonal voussoirs. One even made of boulders held together by gravity alone, one lower than the terrain around it and almost out of view, and some no more than humble, nameless, wooden pedestrian tracks, all available for kissing, even requiring it. Whose idea it was first, we'll never remember, never know. Each time a moment of decision, a crossing over worthy of our pausing to consider. Will we cross together? Do you love me still? If you have walked on ahead, will you wait for me? 40 years on, never mind if anyone is watching, at every span or every stream or riverbed, drought-racked or full, every chasm, gulch, canyon, crevasse, or minor depression in the earth, in all manner of principalities and states, we neither fail nor forget. We allow in our generosity every specimen and instance, nor do we leave a trace of having passed this way. We look into each other's eyes and take a breath. We kiss on bridges, no two of them alike. Try it, you know? You're bound to cross a bridge soon enough. Here's a pantoum, a form that involves repeating lines that circle around each other. Don't worry about it. But it's really good for obsession. And here we are in Rome, where the window shopping is unbelievable, but one can't actually buy anything. So this is called In Rome. Surrounded by the unattainable, I at last want nothing, or almost nothing. I become contented with the fleeting, the perishable. Last night I wanted nothing but a rose-pink shirt and tie in the window at Missoni. Contented with the fleeting, the perishable, I ate a double cup of plum-red gelato, but I wanted the rose-pink shirt and tie in the window with a pink moto helmet to match. I bought a double cup of plum-red gelato, €3 instead of 500, no plum-red moto helmet to match, and a notebook with a map of Rome on the cover, €3 instead of 500. But didn't I deserve the Dolce & Gabbana boots? A notebook with a map of Rome on the cover, the Tiber like a ribbon marking my place. But didn't I deserve the D&G blue leather boots that came with their own blue swimsuit, briefcase, and hat? The Tiber like a ribbon marking our place. We strolled down a lane of prohibitive antiquities. I forgot the swimsuit, the briefcase, and the hat. Now I pined for an astrolabe and Etruscan chariot. We strolled down the lane like prohibited antiquities in a realm of the eternally sun-blessed and young. I pined for an astrolabe, a globe, a chariot. I longed for unapproachable Roman men in their realm of the sun-blessed and the young, when what I wanted was a youth I never had. Those unapproachable, godlike Roman men, transfixed by wanting nothing but themselves. What I wanted was the youth I never had, or almost never. No, I became transfixed by wanting nothing, wanting not even that, surrounded by the unattainable. Here's another one that happened while traveling. It's a sonnet, and it contains 3 drinking toasts in Irish, Hebrew, and English. And I call it the spirits. In the Dublin airport, in the duty-free shop, a brand of Irish whiskey, writer's tears. So many by now I haven't had to weep and swallow and weep, and still one hears the spirits calling. And can you not a wee drop take of it, lad? Sláinte, l'chaim, cheers. But sod off, will yez. You know I know how deep one drop would get. Next it's a couple of beers, then Guinness is good for me, and no, why stop it there until it's another 100 years of Irish fucking solitude? I keep on moving. Duty freed. It disappears more swiftly now, the phantom thirst. My head is cleared for takeoff with the tears unshed. Okay. Let me see this one. Is after a famous poem by Dufour, Tang Dynasty poet of 8th century China, called Spring Vista or Spring View. And at least in one version, it begins, the nation is ruined, but the mountains and rivers remain. So we were having a government shutdown, and I thought of Du Fu. February, spring. The government is shut down, but the mountains and rivers remain. Warming too soon after the 3 months fire, like songbirds nesting in the next door full green tree, about to depart. Here I am, a low official in an outer district, hair going white as new blossoms, taking count of the migrants coming in between sections of the uncompleted wall like letters from home, pleading asylum from our war, and I interpret to the guardians of law what they have to say. Okay, and yeah, let's go back briefly to November 2016. We know what happened then. In our household, we don't actually use the name of the person. Involved, but this is addressed to my father. And may history not repeat itself. And what else do you know? Oh, there's extra credit if you can guess the home state, my home state, that's also referred to. Election elegy, November 2016. It's a bit of a rant, but you know, we've been ranting, and I think it's all one sentence. You and Mom canceled each other out for decades, I'm sure of it, and somehow it worked, but anyway, the ballot was secret is all you would say, and you did your share of railing at any politician in spitting distance, white man of the working class with no college education, except for maybe when we got a Catholic in there, and who wouldn't be angry in a state where the governor routinely went to jail and one is still there where he belongs? Not to mention I formed a good part in the end of what you were angry about. Me with my books and my ticket out of town on a scholarship, and how I came back, as you'd say, with ideas in my head, whereas you liked a self-made man who'd worked for it like a grunt and could put his name on things, but a guy who just sat at a desk and thought thoughts, what was that? And same went for any billionaire who got it handed to him, or a big shot who talks out his ass what he'll do for you tomorrow. No, a shyster you had no time for. Never mind the sucker who'd fall for him and get what he deserves. I'm just saying, don't we agree at last? Though you've been too dead now to vote for 22 years, even in a state where the dead used to vote all the time. And I don't want to hear for one more fucking minute I should try to understand the angry white man, because I do, and he's my kin, and I'm one myself, and I'm not having it, because neither would you. And just look at him, Dad, with his money, and the snarl on his face, and his suits that don't fit right, and his orange hair.
Yeah.
Okay, name that state.
Illinois.
When I wrote this, Governor Rod Blagojevich was still in jail, and you know who pardoned him. Okay, well, Joyce was asking a few minutes ago if I had a Berkeley poem. This is a kind of Berkeley poem, early pandemic days. And it's called Alleluia. Since yesterday, somebody spray painted "The future sucks" on the bus shelter outside the coffee shop, but with a stencil, meaning they planned it out in advance. A woman sits by the door with a cup, maybe all her possessions in 3 plastic bags, and a sign. This isn't how I expected to spend my 60s. My heart hurts. The motherfuckers are letting the criminal president go free, and the man pushing his cart up Shattuck keeps shouting Alleluia when the word comes over him. A falling sound, more distress than joy. Do other hearts half stop? I don't mean the unlocatable soul, where morality might lie in its unmade bed, or beauty, or choice. I mean my heart. One more of these and I'll read from the translation. This is another pandemic poem. Where did I put it? It's called Haircut. Again for my husband, Yoel. You sit shrouded on the kitchen chair, a bed sheet clipped at your neck, your head in my hands. Boy in a barber shop, and what will we have today, young man? The apparition of someone's dad, yours or mine, silently supervising from 60-odd years ago. And where do I, who should be an expert at this by now, begin? But with a kiss on the crown of your head, and here goes your quarantine buzz cut, the only style I half know. As with a flick of the electric clipper, I soothe and carve away what dusty gray locks we've been growing together until they got unruly. And I go unevenly, I know, missing spots and passing over them again like second thoughts, like plaintive amends, and tender around your ears, filling in the moments with gossip and weather, though nothing is new, and making you at last more or less as smooth as the skull all over as when you entered the world, because who else will do it, alone as we are, with this hair that will keep growing in the grave a while, how long, unshorn at the last, where I kiss your head again to say I'm done. So if you want a buzz cut, I'm your man, but that is the only thing I know how to do. Man. Okay, so Central American Book of the Dead. So I met Balam at the Guadalajara Book Fair 5 years ago when this had just won all the prizes. And while Richard mentioned my volunteer work, this was completely, it just was completely akin to the stories I was constantly hearing. So this is a book in multiple voices, spoken by migrants living and dead, traveling north from Central America, through Mexico, toward the United States. What else to say about it? There'll be a lot of mention of the beast, La Bestia, which is the system of freight trains throughout Mexico that hundreds of thousands of migrants travel on every year. I mean, travel on, clinging to the roofs with no hand grip, clinging to ladders, jumping on and off on the run. Incredibly dangerous. Many people don't survive it or get badly hurt, but they have no choice. So that's the beast. And this is the beginning part of a sequence called Voices of Migrants Through Mexico. And here we are on top of the train. In fact, today's New York Times, on the front page, there's a picture of people. They're actually in a relatively comfy flatbed. There are walls around them, but yeah, people traveling on a train. Above us, the trembling sky. Below, our trembling hearts and faces, arm stumps shaking from cold, chattering, grinding teeth broken like stars decayed in the sky's mouth. The moon burns, a motionless dead torch, and the beast stretches on, a double-tongued axe splitting the earth in two, splitting our bodies that lie at God's feet. Someone lights a smoke, and for a moment our faces burn. The cigarettes are fireflies wounding the air. Orion lies dying on the roof of the sky, holding a machete, not a sword. The steel cyclops crawls over the back of a dead country. Fat beast, starving shadows, skeleton trees trembling in the fog like us, rags of flesh soaking in the blood-clotting night. Someone cries out against the cold and prays, Centro America, why have you forsaken me? Here's a short one, 4 lines, titled sort of like a Newspaper headline, death train maiming victim succumbs in hospital. Just to let you hear a little bit of the Spanish. Fallece en hospital mutilado por la bestia. Oteando hacia el norte, aquí tiraron jirones, recién parido de la bestia, me llega un olor a hibiscos, un olor a bisbiciantes flores, las que mi abuela cortaba en Matagalpa, Nicaragua. As I lie here scattered in pieces, facing el norte, sprung newborn from the beast, the smell of hibiscus comes whispering to me, the flowers my grandmother used to gather in Matagalpa, Nicaragua. And this one is spoken by an 11-year-old boy. This book is not for the faint of heart, I will tell you, but I will also say, from my experience, this is not over-dramatized. These stories are not exaggerations. So many of the poems, like this one, are titled by the exact place where a body might be found, with the latitude and longitude, and then the name of a village or town. So this one has the coordinates, and then Tonalá, Chiapas. There's a bunch of soccer terminology in here. Pandilleros are gang members. What else? Roque Dalton, the Salvadoran poet, makes an appearance. Anyway. Tonalá, Chiapas. I'm 11 years old, now and forever. I was born in Barrio Fendesal in Soyapango, not far from San Salvador, but for me, nobody ever was my savior. My father got killed by pandilleros from MS-13. They stole a soda and a quarter off him. That was all he had. He made $3 a day at the garbage dump. I helped him out pulling the cart, and sometimes we found food in the trash bags that came from Metro Centro and went home happy. I ran away from Soyapango with Pablo, who's 15, my friend from the street. He wanted to be a futbolista like me and play for the Selecta. We'd go to the majors and try our luck. That's why we were aiming to get to the United States, where they have more dollars than gangs. At a Mexican sandwich stand in Coatepeque, Guatemala, I saw an awesome show on TV about El Mágico González, playing for the best Cadiz club in history. He scored 2 goals off Barcelona the year my father was born, 1984. I was so happy I cried. 2 days to reach the Mexican border. We crossed the river and hopped onto the beast, just past Tecunuman in Ciudad Hidalgo. Before we reached Arriaga, I fell asleep, and I'm still falling. Forever, just like El Mágico, I'll wear an 11 tattooed on my back, maybe for how many bags they put my torn up body in, maybe because I was wearing the Selecta shirt with that very number, or maybe because death's got that endless 11 of train tracks carved on its gut. Before I fell, Pablo told me this dream. I saw Roque Dalton rising up among the living to come back to the land of the dead. At his right-hand side, El Mágico is dribbling up on death, kicking the heads of Salvadoran pandilleros and doing that snake move, the culebrita macheteada, knocking a tremendous nutmeg between death's legs. Flor Blanca Stadium was packed. The crowd was holding a gigantic wake for all the migrants who were dead. I know that God plays football up in heaven, but I don't want to be on his team just yet. I'll stay right here on the bench, waiting for my friend Pablo and El Mágico González to call me with a smile to play a match. That kid gets to me every time. Yeah, every time. Let me see 2 more of these, and then I think I'll end with something from counting. This one's in the voice of a woman, and it's titled with the coordinates and the city of Francisco Madero, state of Coahuila. The heavens massacred the light. It lies unraveled, shredded, dismembered against the sky, decapitated fossil stars. That's how we are, scattered in the desert, our clothing tossed among the shrubs and thorns, faded, shapeless flowers. The elements eat away at what's left of us. Our prayers are distant and in vain. They abducted us in broad daylight from the bus station in Torreon, Coahuila, gangs of young killers, savages with AK-47s, their violence numbed over with white powder, men with the routine of butchery in their blood. Planks of wood for the men, sticks for the women, hard blows and pain. They pulled numbers out of us along with teeth to extort our kinfolk thousands of miles away, far beyond our ruin. Dry pasture, airless sun, black vultures circling watchfully over our heads. Abandoned, huddled together in incandescent cold, we died of pain, of thirst, sometimes of hunger, and we remain here with our hands and feet bound, our jaws taped shut, tongues rolled back like a dried up snake. Above us, the drawn and quartered light and its corpse, burial mounds of spinning stars. In the mountains of Santa Rosa de Copan, Honduras, my country, the orchids are in bloom. Here in this ditch, swarms of flies swell over my raw blue flesh. The sky, forever, is black. And one more, I'm happy to say, involving living persons. And this is a tribute to a group of women called Las Patronas, the patrons, or even the patron saints, perhaps, in Veracruz, Mexico, who for the past 30 years or more, without any funding or outside help or anything, just because it's the right thing to do, they've been giving food and water for free to migrants passing by on the train. And won a National Human Rights Award, so this poem commemorates that. And so it's called Las Patronas, and the dedication is for Las Patronas who have more balls than any macho. Storm in La Patrona, Amatlan, Veracruz. A night lit by oil lamps, the sun gone down, the electric light gone out, rain beating its fury against the roof, sheets of water pounded to shrapnel clatter. Coffee made from tortillas burnt charcoal black and strained through a rag, nothing but tortillas to ease hunger, and beans boiled over the fire. The fire lights up faces, warms the shadows. The migrants shiver, cups in hand like little hearth fires of water, sugar candle lights for the journey. They barely speak, they stare at the ground, at its cracks and crevices, the ash of charred wood, a snow frost over their feet. The train shakes the earth as it passes and roars deep and kills the last of the sun. Two Nicaraguans widen their eyes like street cats. Tomorrow, we'll have the beast tomorrow. Still, they stand up to go. And I'll close with one from counting. So I was some time back, I was at the end of an artist residency, and I felt like I had run out of gas. I just told one of my fellow writers, a playwright, I need an assignment, give me an assignment. So he told me this, he was writing a book about Iraq, and he told me this blessing in Arabic that begins and ends this poem. I call the poem "The Instruction is a Prayer." So I will leave you with this prayer. May God increase your kindness. May you be generous on purpose and by accident. May you listen more than you speak. May you be only as afraid as you must. May you surrender to God this very instant. May your failures be useful. May you wake up wanting what you have. May you practice making peace with your dearest enemies. May joy increase with you where you go. May you remember your teachers. May you abandon your most favored lies. May you startle yourself. May you be loved and believe it. May you let a stranger save your life. May you let your child grow. May you renounce the last remnant of hatred toward your own worth. May you build something with your hands that will outlast your life. May your religion be kindness. May you speak tenderly with your dead. May spirit enter your unfilled places. May your mind be clear. May you be remembered as you are. May you honor time and let it pass. May God increase your kindness. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next poet is Ann Fisher-Wirth. Her new book, Paradise is Jagged, which is a great title to start out with. She's published, I think, 6 previous books, and she's also editor, co-editor of the Echo Poetry Anthology with Laura Gray Street. Now, Paradise is Jagged is a rich book. Interestingly, it opens with a poem in which a stag appears, in which she rides in the back of her mother's car and says there's so much to see, because this is a beautifully observed book. And that poem ends, whether Anne wants to read this or not, it ends with something like what Dan just finished, a blessing. There's so many important poems in this book. There's a 6-pager, which is probably too long but at Parchman Prison Penitentiary, which is, I learned from the poem, 18,000 acres of prison. And all of these poems are so finely observed. The people, they're full of birds and animals, as one would expect from the editor of that anthology. And the book is dedicated to Anne's sister, Jennifer, and there are very moving eulogies to her, and there's a lot else going on in this book. So let's give her a warm welcome, Ann Fisher-Wirth.
Yeah, I'm short. Thank you. Yeah, this is really special. I partly grew up in Berkeley, and my daughter and her husband and 2 kids who are right back there still live in Berkeley, and I'm really pleased that they're here. I'm really pleased that, I'm gonna start crying, that people that I love and that I hardly ever get to see are here. So thank you all for coming. So I'm gonna read from this book, Paradise is Jagged. And I'm an Army brat. Before I lived in Berkeley, my dad was in the Army. So he tended to get sent to places to be part of occupying armies. And then he was also in the Korean War. So this first poem that I'd like to read is called Childhood. How soft were her hands, stroking our hair as she sang to us, my little sister and me, lullabies that curved through the silvery trees. Our father was somewhere called Korea. He wrote to us that children in crimson overalls ran after him for American candy. Now I know that suffering sows the world with salt. But then I only wondered how the birds slept, feathers puffed out around them in the darkness. What frogs said with their burbling throats, where the mysterious rivers ran. So then my father was sent to meet us in Japan, and we went to an army school there, my little sister and me, for a couple of years, in a place called Sagamihara. And it was like this tiny little village. So this is in the 50s, not so long after the end of the war. Outside Sagamihara, blue irises in a bucket beside a rutted road, muddy puddles, the one-room shop so fragile as if made of matchsticks, and the woman, young or old, I do not know, I was a child. My mother picked her way from the green Ford across the puddles into the shop to buy irises. This was Japan, 1954. This was war's long reach of poverty. No other flowers, only blue irises. Then we came to Berkeley, and that was culture shock. I was a dork, had the wrong shoes, had the wrong hairstyle, I didn't know dirty jokes, I was totally a geek, you know. And this is a poem called I Want to Be a Gladiola. So this is kind of pre-teen years. Some of you probably remember what a merry widow was. These instruments of torture that were supposed to make you look like you had a small waist and a bust, you know? I want to be a gladiola, but I'm chubby, 13. My braces just came off and my mother plucked my eyebrows. I've curled my hair and put on tangy lipstick and the bottle green taffeta tulip skirt dress I made my mother buy me for dinner with our relatives. I am the epitome of glamour, the ne plus ultra of seething flesh in this cocktail dress for a 30-year-old. And I goo-goo-eye the waiter, ready to elope with him to the wilds of Colorado. Meanwhile, the aunt we've never met asked my sister and me if we miss Japan, how we like California. And our uncle, the rich lawyer, grills our father, so what's next, now that you're finished with the army? 1960, Beverly Hills, a place I hadn't heard of. Everybody coolly glittering. I chew my shrimp and sip my Shirley Temple above a breathless pit called You'll Never Find Love. My coupe glacé arrives. My merry widow's pinching. My garter belt makes welts in the backs of my thighs. And we used to just like torture ourselves, right? With the hairbrush rollers and all that stuff. This is my Berkeley poem, Freedom's Just Another Word, okay? From one of my favorite songs in the world. And I went to Berkeley High, which is where my grandson's gonna be starting next year. And this is Telegraph, 1963. So freedom's just another word. Telegraph, 1963. Before the Angels read 200 hogs and started dealing. The summer Susie Cahill and I put on our black tights and fishnet sweaters, lined our eyes like Cleopatra, and strolled down the hill with our rhinestone pipes and Latakia. Abba to my high school social club, Adelphians, second coolest at Berkeley High. Abba to my girdle and kitten heels. Even my mom couldn't make me go sit in a circle and what do? Eat cupcakes? Talk about hair and Frankie Avalon? Abba to dances at the Brazil room up at Tilden, where wind blew through the eucalyptus and I shivered in my scarlet sheath. Pink carnation wrist corsage draped listless over my boyfriend's shoulder. You could nurse a cafe latte at the Mediterranean, where the espresso machine steamed and sputtered, and Julia Vinograd, famous bubble lady of People's Park, trailed through the cafe in her velvet tasseled cap and floor-length skirt, selling her stapled poetry chapbooks for $1. and the beautiful guy with the shock of wheat-scorched hair held forth from his table about love. He drew my profile in green ink, leafy tendrils weaving around me and up from my hair. I followed him to his mattress on the floor. Next morning, cold spaghetti from an iron pot, and when I passed him later by Cody's, he started singing Pretty Woman. Back to high school, the breathless boredom, the silent house, my father dead, my mother grieving. So I live in Mississippi, about which I would have a great deal to say, for good and for ill. But one thing that's pretty cool that you probably don't know is that we have a Buddhist monastery founded by Thich Nhat Hanh very close to where I live, Magnolia Grove. And this is a place that's been really important to me over the years. I first went there when I was doing my yoga training, and I've gone back from time to time. And I'm going to read a couple of poems as I go along that have to do with this. This is a COVID poem, late May. I'm on my deck and my underwear starve for sunlight. Without people, the sky is clean again, and all day long the birds clamor and music. A woodpecker drills at a telephone pole, and two cardinals dive on each other through the privet. A world empty of people, just uninterrupted grass, Lawrence wrote 100 years ago, and a hare sitting up, ready to bound, alert and quivering. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. The monks and nuns sing, standing in a circle beneath the trees at Magnolia Grove, Thich Nhat Hanh's monastery in Mississippi. And today, I'd like to sit with Sister Boy and Sister Peace, eat vegetables and tofu, then wash my plate and bowl in a series of pans, dirty water, soapy water, rinse water, clear, like this sky, like the breeze in which the daylight swims. So there's this amazing tree. I just recently retired from the University of Mississippi where I taught for 34 years. And this amazing catalpa tree, I don't know if y'all know what a catalpa tree looks like. Huge, big leaves, white flowers. And this is a prose poem about catalpa and about Mississippi. Catalpa. The tree is older than Columbus. 10 years ago, my honors students standing in a ring could barely get their arms around it. I took their picture, hands joined, cheeks against the rough wood. Mostly, they loved it, but one guy told my friend who supervised his lab, she made us hug a tree. It was the worst class ever. When I think of the tree as a sapling, my mind enters a great quiet. Before the Depression, the yellow fever, before the burning of Oxford, before the university grays left their classrooms for the battlefield and died or were wounded to a man at Pickett's charge, and before Princess Hoka of the Chickasaws set out with her people on a trail of tears, this tree sank its roots deep and deeper into the ground. Generations moved about beneath its boughs, spoke and loved and died as it grew. And here it is still in the clattering present. 10 years ago, I could walk around it, smell it, stroke the lichen on its bark. If I put my hand into the hollow in its trunk right near the ground, it was always cold, always comforting. No matter how brutal the summer, its dark, mysterious lungs kept serenely breathing. Now fences surround it, states hold up its branches. No longer do art majors loll on the benches and smoke under its big leaf shade. A sign warns, no climbing, keep off. Still, every spring, wet tender leaves unfurl on branches jagged as broken bones, and the tree bursts out in a froth of white petals. And every spring, the preachers line the sidewalk near the tree, and thrust their Bibles as we pass by. Repent and be saved, they say. Turn or burn. I want to tell them, turn around, and look at the tree. So, this book does have a series of elegies in it from my sister Jennifer, as Richard mentioned, who died in 2019. And I'm going to read several of those. And behind us, only air. 10 days from death, she glows, sitting beside me on their deck, scarf wrapped around her head. She's leaning toward me. I have a cold, so I'm leaning away, afraid to give her one more thing to fight. And it hurts that someone seeing this photograph might think I'm avoiding her. She's softly smiling at the photographer, her husband, on this, my last visit. I feel messy, unfinished. There's too much of me. I'm too given over to life, and all of that has been stripped from her. She has gone beyond grief. Not yet is she skeletal, quite. Inhabitation. So I should mention, I have rheumatoid arthritis, and one of the things that's associated with that is a lot of muscle cramps and twitching and stuff. So I write about that some in this book too. Inhabitation. A year ago, midsummer, we visited Magnolia Grove. You with your newly shaved head, and when I introduced you, Sister Boy and Sister Peace, likewise bald, embraced you. Heat gathers, every day hotter than the day before. Something lives in our walls again, scrabbling behind the bricked-up fireplace, and ants spill out from infinitesimal cracks in the corners. Apricots rot before they're ripe. My days in near seclusion creep through the hours and surrender to sleep, or to twitches, as if I'm a rag doll shaken. I can't tell you how I miss you. I keep wanting to phone you, ask something you would know with your flawless memory. What year our father went to Korea, when and how our grandparents died. To ask if you remember all that past. But one night, as I lay there twitching, trying to sleep, you came through the shining membrane between life and death, so that I saw you, and I was you, gaunt edifice, cage of bone, and the clear diminishing flame that was still in that second, my sister. Actually, Bobby, you read that. You gave me really good advice on that poem. How many of you were thumb suckers as children? I was a thumb-sucking addict. And so there's this vile liquid called thumb that would be painted on your thumb, supposedly to make you want to stop. But guess what? You can get used to anything. There's a poem called Thumb. So we have these huge pecan trees in our front yard. And during COVID, I spent a lot of time on the porch, listening to birds, looking at the flowers, looking at the pecan trees. Thumb. How many hours have I spent on this porch, idly stroking my thumb, where the trees join overhead and mingle their enormous swaying branches? I want to lie down, my sister said. I do not want to eat. Though her husband and I kept coaxing her, try just half a hemp gummy in our desperate wish that her appetite would magically revive. That night, she and I watched the Great British Baking Show, second time for both of us. We sat on the white couch with her head on my shoulder, and once again the Indian guy we liked, who found his tray too heavy, took first prize. Next morning, as her husband drove me to the airport, I asked to stop so I could buy her flowers. I wrote, I love you always, and the card stayed on their windowsill for weeks after she died. Today, I'm remembering thumb, vile liquid painted on our thumbs when we were small, to make us quit before we joined our father who was stationed in Japan. It tasted bitter, but bit by bit, I'd take it on my tongue until it wore away, the bitterness nearly pleasing. I'm thinking about the strangeness of time, what fades, what stays. Back then, the two small girls curled up beneath the covers, singing lullabies to each other. One now buried in pale linen on a bed of flowers in an Amish coffin, the other possessed of a nightly dance. When I lie down, the cramps begin, first in the arches of my feet, then in my ankles, which torque and writhe, and on up until my legs are rigid. If I can breathe beneath the current of this agony, sink down beneath the agitated waves, at last the cramps subside. And why am I telling you this? The dance of all this dying, all this grieving, all this pain, seems like prana moving through us, like those swaying branches in midsummer Mississippi, where at night the vast trees throb with cicadas' silver music. Persimmons. So, well, my sister and I have a complicated relationship with persimmons. She was a poet and she wrote about persimmons, and this is my poem called Persimmons. My sister said, I would like to write about persimmons, but I can't. Along the street they hung, glossy and taut among the leaves, olive light in their red-orange flesh, like breasts, like buttocks or wombs swollen with sun, with desire, the sexy fruit she loved, on this radiant All Souls morning when she returned to walk with me. So I'm going to read you a California poem from the California mountains. It's called Now and Again. And I wrote this when I was at Jurassic, which is a place I dearly love. Now and again in the California mountains. Stars glitter the mown ditches, blown from thistles. The fawn's spots fade with latening June. The morning glories like thimbles of milk among seed-heavy grasses, where 1,000 weed stems arc and angle without words. A red-tailed hawk rides the thermals, hovering. I have a death to bring you, but now and again I return to live oak forests and fields dropping off through fog toward the ocean, and cries of birds in twilight, and wind blowing where it pleases. And a Mississippi poem. So we have these beautiful trails near where I live. There used to be a railroad from Water Valley to Oxford, but now it's a walking trail or biking trail. And this is a backward abecedarian, so it starts with Z and works its way back to A. It's called Jagged Paradise. Zing, you're alive, aren't you? X-rays show nothing wrong. Why fight against this happiness? Violets clustering between the bricks on the front walk, under the pecan tree, spider lilies, intricate and scarlet. Theo, the tuxedo cat, lapping cream on the porch. Sunlight on the trail this morning warms my love's neck and his worn red shirt. It gilds the bulrushes, silvers the feathery grasses. Quick, look, as we walk, the heron who lives by the little pond rises heavy-bodied into the trees. One rudbeckia, one purple zinnia. Not much else grows where the trail branches off into darkness. Moon tonight is full, sailing around the sky, clouds whipping past. Leaning on my husband, I crook my neck to look up at the sky. Keep him safe, moon and sky. Keep him in your care, my guy in his jeans and hiking boots, his olive-colored shirt and the belt tongue that keeps curling. In my squeaky voice, I sing him, Il y a longtemps que je t'aime. How old we're growing together. Me, him with his toenails sharp as knives, gnarly eyebrows, me with my twisted toes. We love the things we love for what they are, wrote Frost, and it's true. Every cicada sings us closer to winter now. Darkness soaks the grasses, pulls beneath the trees. Come here, little one, whoever you may be. The day and night ripen blood-red berries of sumac, dogwood, roses. All the leaves are mottled and stained. Amen. Breathe in. It's late October. I'm going to read you 2 more poems. So this one is an homage to something that was outside my office building at the University of Mississippi. And it's called Of the Eternal Waters. I don't care if you saved a little boy by grabbing the tail of his shirt as he was falling off a Ferris wheel, or performed a Heimlich as Danny choked on chicken, or tucked your feet behind your neck and balanced on your hands, or if you loved to snuggle with your blue-eyed, roundish mother, or you loved your army father but couldn't make his slide rule work, or you wish you had a parrot who said timor mortis conturbat me, or you wish you had an Airedale, or you wish you had a kitten, or your son painted your bedroom, it's like sleeping in a daffodil, or your apple pie is to die for, or you once ate a pansy and mustard and potato chips and applesauce on tuna, or you dreamed you could wander on every glorious Wanderweg in the flower-speckled Alps, or your irises are blooming, or your salvias are blooming, or something ate your basil, or Van Gogh, Magritte, and Bruegel, or one night by the Seine, or one noon by the cafe, or you love his warm blonde hands, or fire glints off your opal ring, or you've taught here 30 years, or your smile could charm a badger, you can't wade in this fountain. And I'll finish with the poem that Richard mentioned, A Young Stag at Dusk. The Oxford graveyard is really close to my house. That's where Faulkner's buried. It's a really beautiful old graveyard with these huge old marble columns and stuff, you know. So this is a poem in little sections. A young stag at dusk. Whitetail flicking, eating flowers heaped on a rock grave. He raises his head to watch us before he vanishes slowly into the trees. Outside the kitchen window, my peace roses ride on arching stems like moons in a lead-white sky. All year, earth holds them. I ignore them. Night thickens among the branches of ginkgo, maple, willow oak, cherry, redbud, and the thicket of bamboo that surround this wooden house. Sometimes I am afraid. At 3, I knelt on the back seat of my mother's car, and looking out the window, I said, there's so much to see, and so little time to see it. Or so I've been told. It's like that now, watching the leaves. Bread rises in the oven. May the stag sink back into the forest. May the petals fall on the grass. Whoever you are, may you be at peace in this great silence, where only the birds speak. So thank you.